Hey guys, Razorblade Mango here, and today I'm going to be talking about Horizon Forbidden West, which is the latest game from Guerrilla Games and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. So, a little note about the footage in this video. The footage from this video is going to be a mix of trailer footage that does show some story-specific things, and post-game footage that I recorded. So, while there isn't anything specific that I say with my words in the video that will spoil the story, there will be some things in the gameplay, namely some visual elements, that will only be available in the game after you've beaten the main campaign. So if you don't want some of the surprises spoiled for you, I would suggest just listening to this video like a podcast. Now, Horizon Forbidden West. So normally when I talk about a game, my basic setup is that I write down all my notes in a Google Doc, and then I throw up Audacity and I just read you guys the notes, and, hopefully in a non-boring, cohesive way that feels like a one-way conversation between me and you guys. And there are just some times with certain games where I write notes down and then I just don't care and I just say whatever I want with this game. I did that for Anthem, where I wrote notes and then I just went and just wanted to record an off-the-cuff thing, and I did that with Destruction All-Stars as well. And I honestly have that same feeling with Horizon Forbidden West, because I have my notes in front of me, but I don't want to structure the review like this now that I'm actually looking at this stuff. I just don't want to do it. And that honestly is coming from my overall thoughts on Horizon Forbidden West itself. This game had such unfortunate timing. It came out, this is the second time in Horizon's history that it's come out a week or so before a big, game-changing, mega-influential open-world game. In 2017, it was Horizon Zero Dawn versus Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This year, it's Horizon Forbidden West versus Elden Ring. And I'm not going to deny that there are certain things in Elden Ring that I find much more interesting, structure-wise, atmosphere-wise, much more interesting there compared to Horizon Forbidden West. So, I'm also recording this about a month after I spent significant time with Horizon Forbidden West, and I feel like one of my biggest regrets with a lot of videos is that, especially a lot of reviews, is that I feel like I get out my thoughts too quickly, and they evolve more over time. Like, for example, I'm not at all happy with how the Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart video turned out. I rushed myself to do that, and it definitely showed when I go back and watch it. I don't like that video, and part of the reason I don't like it is because I felt like I wasn't as harsh on that game as I should have been. I wasn't as critical of it as I wanted to be, now that I have a more, clear understanding of the game and what makes it tick and what doesn't work about it. So from this point on, this is what I'm trying to remedy with this video, is that I want to record my thoughts on a game about a month or so after I'm done with the game, because I want to let my thoughts marinate in my head for a while. And a strength of that could be, my thoughts improve over time. Like Astro's Playroom. Like, if I had made that video about a month after it came out, it would have been a much, much, much more glowing, accurate assessment of how I feel about that game. But with Horizon Forbidden West, the detriment to this game is that it's a very good game. I want to get this out of the way. In the short term, it is a very good, enjoyable game. You're going to have a lot of fun with it with the 50, 60 hours you dedicate to it. But at the same time, in the long run, it is very forgettable and very disposable. And the best analogy that I can come up with off the top of my head, it's like having really amazing sex with a really hot hooker. Like, you know, you're in the moment, and it's like, wow, this is so great. Like, I can't believe it. It's so good. And then when you're done, and you've paid the hooker, and it's gone, you're just kind of sitting there with this, like, empty feeling of, like, what did that all mean? You know, and in the case of, you know, having sex with a really hot hooker, there is no meaning. There's no intimacy. There's nothing. It's just a very shallow experience. That's fun in the short term, no doubt. Mind-blowing, maybe, in the short term. But in the long term? Not really. And the thing that I can boil this down to, the two big Achilles heels that Horizon Forbidden West has. One is that it has a really distinct lack of emotional investment, especially compared to the first game. And two, it has a lack of personality. So we'll start with the lack of emotional investment. The best example that I can compare Horizon Forbidden West to is I've been recently replaying God of War in order to prep for Ragnarok, whenever the hell that comes out this year. And what that game doesn't do right for me is made up by the fact that I feel a strong emotional involvement in the story. I am compelled by what's going on. I am compelled by the growing and changing dynamic between Kratos and Atreus. And I love all the different like story beats and character moments, and it's really engaging on an emotional level. And by emotional, I don't just simply mean, oh, it made me feel like heartwarming or it made me cry or anything like that. No, it makes me feel, you know, a variety of things. It's not just a one speed kind of thing. It has its peaks and valleys as far as like where you are emotionally in that game. And same thing with another PlayStation game, Ghost of Tsushima, where Ghost of Tsushima I feel like has a very emotionally engaging story where the key dynamic of that game is the growing inner turmoil with Jin Sakai, where he has to wrestle with the lifelong dedication to honor and him wanting to please his uncle, who's basically his like second dad, and also coming to terms with the fact that he must embrace less honorable means of fighting off the Mongols when they've invaded his home, or he feels like that's the only option to have a chance against them. And that's a really interesting character dynamic. And those things are not in Horizon Forbidden West. And that especially is surprising coming off of Zero Dawn, where Zero Dawn, I feel like, is much more engaging because you are learning about this world through the eyes of Aloy for the first time. And you're also learning about herself at the same time she is as well. You're learning, you know, where she comes from, why she exists, who were her parents, why do people consider her an outcast. And because you're learning these things with her, you feel a bigger connection to her. And you don't really have that in Horizon Forbidden West now. Now the themes seem to be centered around, you know, really like really shallow, obvious platitudes. Like the big ultimate message of this game that they spell out over and over and over again is, Aloy, you need to learn to cooperate with and trust others. Don't be so selfish. Don't run away from your friends. Don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Learn to trust people. And it's like, got it. Got it. Thank you, game. I understood that the first few hours I played it. I don't need to be reminded of this over and over and over and over again. And it's such a shame that I feel like they scrapped that personal connection to Aloy in favor of expanding upon the lore and some of the weirder, sillier science fiction elements that just didn't quite work for me. And I would have preferred the Zero Dawn. Like, that's where I think Zero Dawn far outclasses Forbidden West in terms of storytelling. I just don't feel as connected to this world and to Aloy as I did the first time around. And another thing too, the other Achilles heel is the lack of personality that this game has. It is so shiny and visually interesting, and you can tell that it's been focus tested to death, because it's got a lot of like little quality of life things, and it's a very competently put together experience. But as far as its own unique niche or vibe, it doesn't have that, especially when the first time around it had that novelty of like, oh, it's like a Monster Hunter Light kind of experience. That's cool. But now that honeymoon phase is over with that concept, it's like, well, now what? And now what is that it's basically the same thing again, except refined to an even greater degree. And that's fine. Like, if you loved Horizon Zero Dawn and you just want more of the same, you're gonna have a fucking blast with Forbidden West. But if you're somebody like me who kind of wants more from their open world games these days, that things that I'm getting out of Elden Ring, it's ultimately disappointing that it just doesn't. I don't think this game really has established a unique identity of its own. I don't think it's really established a unique, like, personality. It's not flawed in any kind of unique way to make it, like, charming. It doesn't have a distinct, like, character design or personality, especially, again, comparing it to the first game, now that the honeymoon phase is over. It just doesn't. And ultimately, I think, to be fair, I mentioned God of War earlier. I don't think God of War really has a distinct personality either, where similar to Forbidden West, it just feels like an amalgamation of all these different things and all these different games. But the reason that game works for me so well is because I think the writing and the character work and the acting more than make up for the lack of any, distinct personality in it. But in Forbidden West, because I don't have that emotional investment, it starts to make the lack of an identity feel all the more obvious. It's more apparent when I play it. And another issue with this game too, it's not exactly an Achilles heel, is that I think the art direction and the visuals, for the most part, are excellent. There are some literally breathtaking imagery in this game, and I whipped out that share button so many times and just took so many snapshots of the skyboxes and just vistas. It's an incredible looking game for the most part. But there are those times in the game where it is so detailed and there's so much light and color and shadow that it starts to feel visually cluttered and not very appealing to look at. And I'm not the only one who noticed this. One of my good friends, he played it, and he literally got nauseous playing it because of how detailed it was. And I saw that myself when I went back to the game before sitting down to record this. I went back and I played it for like 30 minutes to kind of get a feel for the game again. And I was really taken aback, especially coming off of something like Elden Ring, which I feel like has a more pleasing visual look to it as far as art direction and atmosphere. I got like nauseous as well playing Horizon Forbidden West. And that was really surprising. I did not expect that to happen. I thought that was just a unique thing to my friend, but it happened to me, where I got like motion sick playing it, where I literally had to like lay down because of how nauseous I felt playing it. I'm not kidding. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's so like overwhelming how much information your eyes are getting in this game in some cases. And compared to I'm comparing this game to a lot of PlayStation games today, but I'm going to compare it to another one, Astro's Playroom, where Astro's Playroom is one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. It's beautiful, rich with detail, colorful, but there is enough of a base color palette and clearly contrasting colors, lighting, and shadows that make it more pleasing to look at. It's beautiful and rich with detail without being overwhelming and messy. Like, when I look at Astro's Playroom, my eyes always feel like they're in control of what it's seeing and how to process the information that it's getting. And especially in the performance mode in Horizon Forbidden West, there's just this weird haze over everything. And I have noticed the shimmering as well that Guerrilla has publicly acknowledged as a problem. So that was disappointing. Those few times, and I'm not saying the whole game is like this. Like 90% of the time, the game looks amazing. And it's really, really, like, really impressive stuff. But that 10% is just... when it starts to, like... It wouldn't bother me so much if it didn't physically affect me. Like, if it didn't physically give me a headache or physically didn't make me feel disoriented or nauseous. And that's the main reason I bring it up, is because it's not just a case with me. Or I have a friend who literally cannot play it because of how visually overwhelming it is, as far as detail and lighting and foliage and shadows and color. It's too much in a lot of cases. And the final point that I will make about this game is that it is another game over the past year or so that has been a noticeable downgrade from Sony's usual high standards of quality assurance. And this is like the 1, 2, 3. This is the 3 in the 1, 2, 3 punch. And I first noticed this with Returnal last year, then Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and now Horizon Forbidden West, where all three of them came out surprisingly buggy at launch. With Returnal, I literally could not progress through doors at some points. And it crashed a few times too. And there were corrupt save problems with the game, which was just unacceptable when that first came out. Then Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, where it literally hard crashed my PS5 so bad that I had to rebuild the database. And I was like clipping through walls and falling through the floor a bunch of times. It was ridiculous at launch. And now Horizon Forbidden West, where, you know, at the launch version of it, like the frame rate wasn't a smooth 60 frames. I was like clipping through the environment a lot. There were some progression blocking bugs that would come up that would thankfully could be saved by like a reload, but they were still there. Aloy's hair physics are hilarious. Like it's like there's a moment where she sits down to like put her head in her hands, and the way her hair looks, it looks like something out of fucking Uzumaki. The Junji Ito manga, where it's like fucking hair just like spirals out of control, and it looks like that kind of shit. And it's unacceptable. Like it's like, and now that we're almost 2 months removed from the launch of the game, and with how many patches Guerrilla has released since that have addressed, you know, they've addressed many of the bugs that I had. They've addressed the small gameplay issues I have with the game. But you guys know I don't give a shit about that. I care what's on the disc day one. And with that being said, I can't help but think it would have been far wiser to delay this game to late April or early May. I don't see the harm in that. Not only would it have been a far more polished experience, but the game would have gotten out of the way of Elden Ring's big swinging dick. You know, like, Sony did this to themselves, where I feel like culturally this game has just been completely overshadowed by Elden Ring, and that is Sony's fault. And what I find hilarious too is that normally when PlayStation throws up a blog, you know, the monthly blog about what were the top selling games of each month, I find it hilarious that their own game was not the #1 game on the PlayStation Store for February, and it released 1 week earlier than Elden Ring. And they couldn't brag about that. because their own big marquee game wasn't the number one. Even after all that hype, even after all the marketing, even after everything, Elden Ring kicked its ass in the sales department and the critical response and the cultural impact. So, Sony just did this to themselves. I'm sorry, they did. Better luck next time, guys, when Horizon 3 comes out a week before Grand Theft Auto 6 or Elden Ring 6 or something massive like that. So, good job, guys. And, yeah. So, I feel bad criticizing this game so much. And that's rare for me to say, because I do see where the effort went. Look, this isn't some trash live service that exists to gouge out your bank account. It is exactly what I want out of Sony, theoretically. But I can't just give it a pass for being the kind of game I want from Sony. It's kind of disappointing, honestly. Like, it's a really good game, don't get me wrong. And yes, I do recommend it if you're looking for something that will be a really fun time for like 50 or 60 hours. It's not going to hurt me to think about in the long run like Final Fantasy 15, but I just expected more from it, despite how good it is. And I guess that's a testament to how good PlayStation's single-player stuff has been for the most part for like a generation and change now. And I guess I just expected more from Forbidden West. In a lot of ways, it's like 3 big steps forward and then 1 big step back, which is just a shame. And again, like, if it had just come out now or early May, it would have done better. I can guarantee you it would have done much better financially, critically, and culturally. It would have done better. So, it's a shame. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you like what you see, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of Horizon Forbidden West. And as always, I am Razorblade Mango. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all later.